So tell us a little bit about when you have a client come to you and she's got, or he, because you coach both men and women, they
Yes.
have specific goals for their body composition or, reframing their composition, losing fat, building muscle, and they're looking at their nutrition and trying to dial that in. What are the ways that you know that this person is metabolically ready? Like, how do we know that their body is going to metabolically respond to the intervention?
Yeah, so really, first and foremost, it really comes down to what's called a needs analysis. So I go through a very comprehensive client intake process where I'm looking at, I mean, if I was to send you over the form, it's multiple pages long. And that's really also to be able to distinguish and delineate is if we're a good fit first and foremost. But I'm looking at everything from their dieting history, their level of potential metabolic adaptation, what their hunger and appetite levels are, how long they've been out of a deficit, what their nutrition has looked like, and then other factors like body composition related. So what's their current muscle mass level and what's their training like, and then their sleep quality and sleep quantity. Really what I'm trying to see is a lot of people come to me, and I'm sure you ladies understand this and probably see these same goals. Everyone wants fat loss, everyone wants a diet, and they constantly want to jump into a diet. And really, many people may want that intervention, but they're not in the place physiologically or psychologically to actually respond favorably to it. So I found that if these components are not in a good place, if they're in a poor place, the body is often less responsive to that deficit. It makes the fat loss process harder, and a person is not in the best position to succeed. So when I'm going through that new client intake process, I want to understand that person's dieting history. And that matters because really it's very rare. I work with say like 60% women and 40% men, but I could say this on both ends of the spectrum. It's very rare these days that I get someone that doesn't have an extensive history of dieting, they haven't went through chronic dieting cycles, or they haven't yo-yo dieted. And if a client wants to lose fat, one of the first things I want to know is how recently they were in a calorie deficit and how long that diet lasted. Because if you just came out of a long fat loss phase, it's very likely that you're still dealing with some of what are called diet-induced metabolic adaptations. And really what I mean by that is that there's multiple components of both our metabolism, our hormones, and then our appetite that are impacted from the effects of a deficit and losing body fat. So from an energy expenditure perspective, and this really is comprised of like your total daily energy expenditure, but people will colloquially call this their metabolism. All four parts of our total daily energy expenditure downregulate during a deficit. This is a natural survival response. So we see that basal metabolic rate tends to decrease as body mass comes down. Your thermic effect of feeding starts to decrease because you're eating less calories, so there's less calories that need to be burned through the process of digestion and assimilation. Even like your exercise energy or exercise energy expenditure, so the amount of calories you're burning through exercise decreases because you're becoming more efficient with movement. And then your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is like your spontaneous activity, when you're in a deficit and you've lost body weight, that is one of the largest components that gets downregulated, where most people don't understand and don't realize that. And that could be hundreds of calories per day that you're now burning less because you're now spontaneously moving less. You're more slouched. You're less animated. Like I'm speaking with my hands right now, but I'm in a surplus. So like if I was in a deficit, you would see I would be moving much slower. I'd probably blink slower. There's many components that a lot of people don't contribute or don't associate with calorie burn that get downregulated. Now on the opposite side, and this is something that you guys probably see quite often, we have hormonal adaptations to a deficit. So we're going to see things like changes in sex hormones, like testosterone is going to decline, estradiol, progesterone. These are all going to fall. We're going to see reductions in thyroid output and thyroid conversion, which generally will manifest on labs as reductions in T3 levels, especially free T3 levels. And then a lot of people will also have higher cortisol levels. And these hormonal changes can affect energy levels, recovery, mood, and then particularly with women, we're going to see that it affects their menstrual cycle regularity. So that could be an elongation of their menstrual cycle, so we can get oligoamenorrhea, or in some women, they suffer from what's called hypothalamic amenorrhea, where it's the cessation of a menstrual cycle for 90 days or longer. Now, if I have someone come to me in a position where any of these hormonal markers or any of these energy expenditure markers are off, they are still suffering the metabolic adaptations of their previous diet. They have not taken enough time to restore, and that's a major sign that they are not metabolically ready to go into a fat loss phase, and their body's not in a responsive state. And this is really important to understand because this could really hinder the results that this person gets. So I'm looking at how long have they been out of a deficit? What does their current nutrition look like? Because most people will need a meaningful amount of time at maintenance, and in some cases in a surplus, to truly be in a good place to respond metabolically, and especially if the goal is fat loss. And that time at or above maintenance gives us a chance to restore their physiology, to reverse the metabolic adaptations from the last diet, and then also other like biofeedback markers. So we want to see reduced diet fatigue, we want to see improved performance, and we also want to be able to improve their body composition through better training quality and better recovery.